More Spinosaurids. Welcome guys once again to the channel, Ranking with Dinosaurs, where we rank, you guessed it, dinosaurs. And today, an exciting video. Well, I don't know how exciting it is, but for me it's exciting because we are welcoming the new section on the channel where we expand upon the videos that we've made in the past. So, I was actually thinking about, Spinosaurids, since there was that new discovery in, I think it was in Peru, where they might, emphasis on might, have found a new Spinosaurid, a ghost lineage that went all the way into the Maastrichtian. What? And I was excited, and I was like, oh my god, I want to talk about Spinosaurids. And yes, we did a video on the channel. If you haven't seen it, go check it out, please. We talk about quite a bit of different Spinosaurids, but as with all the videos that I've made up until this point, I've definitely left some of them behind. So these videos, which are going to be, more of, are going to be basically me covering the most, I want to say obscure species, since I didn't talk about them in, the main video, or the most important ones. So, this is going to be a bit exciting. Obviously, this dinosaur is going to be, a bit more, not only on the obscure side, but, on the, very fragmentary, almost, walking on thin ice. So, some of these, not only Spinosaurids, but, in future videos, take some of these guys with a grain of salt, in, which, might not be valid themselves. So, without further ado, I've been talking too much. I'm going to be starting with SIAMOSAURUS. Now, SIAMOSAURUS is a very dubious genus of Spinosaurid that lived in what is today Thailand, and maybe maybe China as well. So during the early Cretaceous, these guys were found in the Sauqua Formation and later in the Kokruat Formation. And I talked about these formations in my Asian formations video. If you haven't seen that one, check that out. But this guy is only known from tooth fossils. Yes, I think we all know how we feel about these types of dinosaurs that are only described from teeth. But bear with me. Although uncertain, very uncertain, the size estimates, I don't know how they did this, but put it at from 5 to 9 meters, or 17 to 30 feet. I know paleontologists, you guys are very smart, but come on, putting estimates on teeth. The famous teeth measured 62.5 millimeters. That we can be certain. Around 2.46 inches, and they were very similar in shape to those of baryonyx. So we're getting somewhere at least. Now in Thailand, actually, we have found two partial skeletons of Spinosaurids. When I say partial, I mean very, very, very fragmentary. And it might suggest in these skeletons that it might have had a tall sail running down, the back of the animal. Now, this right here is not SIAMOSAURUS, but it is a SINOPLIOSAURUS, which is even more dubious, since I believe the teeth, yes, again, the tooth that was found from SINOPLIOSAURUS actually belongs apparently to a Pliosaurid. So this right here is just a fake dinosaur. I mean, this might be the SIAMOSAURUS that the teeth might belong to, but we're not going to be certain, at least in our lifetime. We say that the cell on its back might be a thing, since the closest relative of these Spinosaurids from this area are probably Ichthyovenator, which is an actual Spinosaurid that has been found with significant material in Laos. So SIAMOSAURUS, I'm sorry, buddy, you are not only dubious, you are looking real troubling. I think I'm gonna put you in C tier. RIPAROVENATOR, the riverbank hunter. Now, this guy right here is a baryonychian Spinosaurid, yes? Which means it is closely related to, yes, baryonyx. And, forms part of that subgroup, where these particular Spinosaurids lack that very tall sail. Now, this guy is from the early Cretaceous, and the remains were found near I believe it's the Kiltonshine Formation. Not formation, it's like I believe it's like a little island or a little, rock, like patch over there. I can't remember. Correct me in the comments, please. But this is in the Wessex Formation. Now, if you remember, Wessex Formation, baryonyx, ring some bells. We actually found some material that was previously attributed to baryonyx during 2013 and 2017. But later were, understood to be actual new species of Spinosaurids. This guy was described from tail vertebrae and some skull bones as well. Now, it is very interesting that the Wessex Formation has, it's a breeding ground for Spinosaurids. We have, baryonyx, RIPAROVENATOR, and I think the newest one is Ceratopsuchops. And, this is interesting because, most likely in, environments where there's, a big apex predator, they usually don't compete with other very huge megatheropods. But apparently, Spinosaurids are, they like to share since, there's quite an agglomeration of Spinosaurids here. And, even I think the environment might have been so, aptly suited for these kinds of animals, very, piscivously oriented, that, the agglomeration of different Spinosaurids might have not been, something totally crazy and entirely possible. RIPAROVENATOR. I think I like it more than SIAMOSAURUS. There's more actual material that we can work with. So I think I might put it in A tier, actually, yes. SIGILMASSASAURUS. Now, I don't know how to say it. I'm not sure how to say it. SIGILMASSASAURUS or SIGILMASSASAURUS. Now, this guy right here is a very controversial genus of Spinosaurid. Now, this guy lived during the late Cretaceous in what is now North Africa. Now, if that, rings a bell to you, North Africa, late Cretaceous, Spinosaurid, think you might know what description that fills. So, this guy was a moderately built, ground-dwelling, bipedal carnivore, a theropod with a very strong neck musculature. Now, this is evidenced by, the vertebrae that has been found, and also the only known material that we have of SIGILMASSASAURUS. Now, this genus was erected in 1996. Of course, it came with a lot of backlash because, the biggest part of the community was debating that, these fossils simply, represented the much more well-known Spinosaurus aegyptiacus. Spinosaurs, since they share a very similar morphology, well, at least this neck vertebrae. Also, the fact that, two giant Spinosaurids in, the same environment is, a bit implausible or weird. However, I will not, use that point against them, since, as we see in other locations, and, we just discussed it with RIPAROVENATOR, that, the Wessex Formation had a bunch of Spinosaurids, and later in the next Spinosaurid that we're going to be talking about, the Iberian Peninsula also happens to have a lot of Spinosaurids. So, I don't know, maybe these guys were cooking something. SIGILMASSASAURUS. As much as I would like for another Spinosaurid to be, to have a sail and all that, I think it's a little weird. Might be, just juvenile or something. So, I'm going to put it in B tier for now. IBEROSPINUS. IBEROSPINUS is a Spinosaurid dinosaur from the early Cretaceous. Now, the bones of IBEROSPINUS were found in the Papo Seco Formation in Portugal. Now, yes, it is known from several assorted bones belonging to a single individual, and it represents one of several distinct Spinosaurid taxa known from the Iberian Peninsula. Now, this is what I was talking about, agglomeration of different, Spinosaurids in very small areas. Now, in this particular one, to IBEROSPINUS, you have to add Camaryllosaurus, Protathlidus, Riojavenatrix, and Valibonavenatrix. And, there's a ton of these Spinosaurus, as I was saying, in, Spain and Portugal around, early Cretaceous. And, it is important, specifically about Spinus, for the implication it has on the, geographical origin of Spinosaurids and the presence of, their semi-aquatic lifestyle much earlier in their evolution as it was previously thought. Sorry. This particular individual of IBEROSPINUS was 23 to 25 years old, very close to its max size and maturity. And as of 2025, actually, IBEROSPINUS is recovered as the basal-most member of Spinosauridae. So we can clearly see that Spinosaurus might have, as a member of Megalosauria, they probably originated in Europe once again, and they expanded either to the east, where it was, all the way until Laos and Thailand, and as far south as North Africa and even Niger, or I believe Suchomimus is from Niger. So they might have expanded quite a bit, or even, even as far as South America, which we'll talk about later. So IBEROSPINUS, very important find. I think it's one of the new cornerstones of Spinosaurid discussion. So I think it's gonna be a solid A tier. OXALAIA. Now I think you've been waiting for this one, or you probably guessed which was the last Spinosaurid. Now this is a very controversial genus, once again, of Spinosaurid that lived in what is now the northeast region of Brazil. Yes, South America. Always a treat when I get to talk about South American dinosaurs, and not only South American dinosaurs that are not from Argentina. Sorry, Argentina, I love you, but come on, you hog literally all the dinosaurs. But no, this was during the late Cretaceous. Now, found in 1999 in the Cahual Island in the Alcantara Formation. Now, although only known from, partial skull bones, the discoverer, Kelleher, found it to be actually distinct from other Spinosaurids. Now, this guy lived in a much more tropical, heavily forested habitat, surrounded by an arid landscape, which, I think it kind of parallels, at the same time, North Africa, to, which was, connected through Gondwana much earlier in time. But, if we extrapolate, actually, OXALAIA is estimated at it could reach around 12 to 14 meters in length and weighed 5 to 7 tons, which makes it pretty impressive. Not only that, but actually makes it the largest Brazilian theropod. The second one being Pycnomenosaurus, if you know your Abelisaurs. So I think OXALAIA is pretty sick if it's actually real. I love that there is also other Spinosaurus in Brazil, which again lends a lot of believability to these specific environments being a very good specifically for Spinosaurids, because we have here Irritator, and I think Angaturama is also Irritator, might be a junior synonym, but there's proof that there's other Spinosaurids in here, so I'm a big fan of that. I'm not sure why it is usually portrayed with a sail. I think it's because it's freaking huge, and the only truly huge Spinosaurids had a big sail, so maybe it's because of that. Let me know in the comments if it's for something else. So OXALAIA, I'm not saying is the most well-known or the most complete Spinosaurid, but it is the one I wanted to be real the most. That is a tier list, guys. Thank you so much for watching the more Spinosaurids tier list. And I didn't have that many this time. And I think some of the other Spinosaurids that I left out are, just a little too similar. Specifically the Iberian Peninsula ones, Rejuvenatrix, Camarellosaurus, and Protothlytis. I think they're fragmentary as well, but, they're fairly similar, you know, interchangeable into each other. But I did want to talk about IBEROSPINUS because I actually didn't know that it is the basal most of, you know, the Spinosaurids. So, you know, that's pretty exciting. But that's it. I don't know when I'm going to revisit Spinosaurids, but, you know, I wanted to, you know, get this ones out of the way since these are, I believe, the ones that are more popular or, you know, the most well-known that are, you know, obscure, if we're talking about obscure Spinosaurids. So, thank you guys so much for watching once again. Please keep commenting on the videos. Really helps a lot, and I appreciate it. I read every single comment that you put. How can you help the channel? Please like the video. Helps a lot. Subscribe. It helps even more. And I will see you guys in the next video.